So first off question, what made you want to be a professional wrestler? We'll just go down the line and start with Tito.
Well, I was a football player in college, and I had been getting a nurse to play in the NFL. I wasn't a wrestling fan, but I played football with Tully Blanchard, and the $1 million man for us 18. And Tully Blanchard told me that his father, kept saying that I could have a good career in wrestling. Brought me in.
Sorry, Tito. Sorry, Tito, I was late.
That's okay, Jimmy.
I was here early, but I was late.
Me, I've been watching wrestling. I've been a fan since I'm a kid. I grew up in Miami, Florida, not Norfolk, Virginia, so I was just giving it a But I grew up down there. They used to run, Jackie Gleason used to do the Miami Beach Convention Center. They filmed it there. And when wrestling came to town, they would wrestle there, and then they would the auditorium and Coconut Grove. But the bottom line is, I watched it, I loved it, and I always appreciated it from a young age, but when I got older, I went to my first live match when I was in high school, 16, 17 years old. And seeing it live and seeing the guys that I saw there live, it was just the most amazing thing in my life. And then half of those guys when I was training in the gym at that time, when they came to town, they trained at the gym. Man, kid, you ever thought about doing this? The Kangaroos. You ever thought about doing it? And I avoided, and then down the line, Malenko was my coach, great Malenko. And of course, at least one of his sons, both sons, incredible. But I went up, I audited the class, and eventually I moved to Tampa, Florida, so I could do it not only on the weekends, but I could do it 5, 6 days a week. That's how it got me. I was hooked.
Yeah. I went when I was a kid, same as he said. I used to go probably 13, 14 years old, Tampa, the Armory. Never wanted to be a wrestler. No way did I want to be a wrestler. And I got kind of drafted by Hulk Hogan in 1976. He said, "Come on, kid, you're going to be a wrestler." I go, "What? What?" Because don't worry about it. Come on, you're going to like it. Come on, it's going to be okay. Don't worry. And that's exactly how it happened. And the next thing you know, here we are, the Three Stooges.
My story, I didn't know that about you, Tito. Football player. I was a football player in high school, state championship football team. We played football in the area of the movie Remember the Titans. So we had great football in Northern Virginia. Went to college, football scholarship, James Madison University. Came out, I had football tryouts with the Miami Dolphins. So I wasn't even thinking about wrestling. But after coming out of that camp, met a kid at Blockbuster Video, said, "You should be a pro wrestler, you should be a pro wrestler." I wasn't listening to him because, again, I had tryouts with the Dolphins. I was also working at Bally's Corporation in Florida, doing very well in business, doing a 6-digit income, so I was doing very well financially. But then finally the kid said, "Listen, I really know someone big in the business. I want to introduce you to him." Well, I was really blessed to be able to meet the first person in the business was Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. So Nature Boy Buddy Rogers was my first person to meet in the business. "Hey, kid, you got the body, you're in great shape." I was training for football, NFL tryouts, had made the cuts, but I refused the cuts. But then I still didn't move even after meeting Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, but I kept watching film on WWF when it was Saturday morning, the great wrestling, Saturday morning, not like how it is now. I kept watching, I kept seeing all these superstars coming out wrestling every single day. They were athletes. I was watching them come out to these sold out arenas with all this merchandise on. I'm going, wait a minute, 1 + 1 = 2. These guys are doing fantastic. So I started getting a little bit more interested. And then finally, I hadn't made my decision. And one day I'm sitting in my office at Bally's and I was really, humbled that Nature Boy Buddy Rogers took time out of his day to come to my place of business to give me that final talk that I made the decision to quit a 6-digit job to go after pro wrestling. But also the big input with me too, the reason I wanted to do it is I'm truly Native American. I knew that if I could actually get on a worldwide stage like WWE, the branding that they are globally, it would do tremendous things for our people, which it has, because I've met I hang out with a lot of the chiefs. So that was a big thing with me, to truly represent Native Americans all over the world. So that's how we got in.
There you go. We got it now.
That was a joke, see? We do this to each other. It might be the battery.
All right, I went to Trimble High School in Memphis, Tennessee with Jerry.
The King Lawler. Lawler went into the world of professional wrestling. When I got out of high school, I went into the crazy world of music. We toured with Dick Clark. We had a mid-seller record back in the 60s
called Keep On Dancing, and we did all the tours with the Beach Boys.
a whole bunch of groups like that. So after a year and a half, we were back home off and on, and Jerry called me one day and he said, "Look, Jimmy, would you help me with a wrestling album?" Now, he didn't realize I'd always watched wrestling growing up, and I always loved it. So I said, "I'd love to, King." So I went over to the studio. We cut a couple of wrestling albums for him. The next thing you know, he said, "Will you help us with promotion?" So I started doing promotion with him. I mean, back in the day, I'd pull the ring for him sometimes. We would do the posters around the town. I would do the MC work. I would do the announcer deal if I had to. And then while I was still doing the band off and on, because back then we'd just go out on weekends. And so one day he came to me and said, "Look, would you like to manage me?" And I said, "Man, I'd love to." So I thought it was kind of a rib at first, because I thought he just wants to bring me in to really kind of get rid of me, because I was always hanging around. So we went in, and my first deal was Lawler was fighting a guy called Billy Superstar Dundee in Memphis, Tennessee. So while I was at ringside, he said, "All you got to do, Jimmy, is when I raise my hand up, just throw the chain." I said, "Okay, throw the chain. You got it." And so when I got ready to throw the chain, I threw it so hard, it hit the back rope, and it just wound up around the back rope. So all he had to do was just lean back, pick the chain up, boom. So that's how I got in the wrestling business. It was really kind of a lucky break. And, of course, here we are today. WCW, WWE, we did all the stuff on top of it, so it turned out awesome. But thank you guys for coming out today, man. This is a great show so far.
So I wanted to ask you each, do you remember your first match and what the feeling was like when you walked through that curtain for the first?
Well, I like most of us, we broke in. I know Beefcake and Hulk in Tampa, Florida, and I wrestled a guy that was 300 pounds, and I had a TV match that was a 10-minute draw, and I thought I was going to die. I mean, I was so tensed up, and that's one thing that they teach you, in wrestling and boxing, to you got to be loose. But when I first started, I mean, I was so tensed up that 10 minutes was like going an hour, and I remember walking back. When the bell rang that it was a draw, I was so happy. I made it back to the locker room, and I fell to the cement, and I didn't want anybody to touch me for a while. I wanted to catch my breath. But I don't know about this guys, but my experience was I blew up.
How many of you support local wrestling? Most of us grew up in territories when we first came out, which was small 2-3 state deals. We're not, okay, and I believe the independent wrestling is the territories now that feed into the big companies. But myself, I was training. My first match wasn't behind. They had curtains here, but I wrestled in a flea market. I wrestled in a rodeo arena in Florida, because I was learning. And how you're going to cut? You have to get out in front of people sometime, and you have to experience and listen to the fans and feed off of that. And you know, we're the ones stimulating you, trying to make you either hate us or love us. Because you got heel fans, you got babyface fans. So for me, you know, my first, and like Tito was saying, the first time I was sucking wind like a locomotive. You know, first I was, you know, a 300-pound guy, you know, and eventually at my height with Quake, I got up to like 416, 414. Quake was 460, 450, you know, in that range. But by then, everything is smooth, you know, you can go. But when you're young and the adrenaline is flowing and you're, you know, you get out there, you know, but when you get in there and you're used to working in front of people, you go out there and you can be nervous. I remember they put me with Hulk Hogan, right? At one point, it's Tugboat, okay? I had to pee 4 or 5 times before I ever went out there to do TV. I was so nervous because I'm working with the top guy in the world. And I'm like, why'd they put me here? You know, why are they giving me this break? But, you know, once you go through there and you see you guys and hear you guys, it's all water under the bridge. That's the best I can tell you.
Question was your first match?
If you, in WWE, coming through the curtain, your first match, what was that like for you?
In WWE or just your first match ever? They had me walking around the ring. I don't even remember who my first match was with. Salvatore Balomo or somebody. I don't know. It was a 4 or 5 minute match. And, you know, boom, boom, boom. I was all over the place. By then, I wasn't blowing up. I didn't blow up. I think I did a high knee thing. I flew through the air like almost flew right out of the ring. I was so excited. I jumped. Boom, match was over. Damn, I jumped out of the ring and ran out. And I was like, how'd I do? Oh, okay, man, that was great. Okay, all right. Took off. I was gone. I was like, I survived. All right, that's good.
So my very first pro match was actually January 13th, 1990 against a guy, this is not WWE, Joe Thunderstorm, in Philadelphia. Remember, because it was my first match. Monster Factory is where I went to training school. So we had a jam-packed house at Philly. So I was excited then. But my actually first match at WWF, you step into that arena coming from an independent, and it's sold out. The TV cameras are on you. I actually wrestled, everyone remember, Skinner, Steve Kern. And for my first match, chewing tobacco and spitting it all over me. You come out front of that crowd, okay, as big as it is, you can be in great shape, but you can be sucking wind because the excitement, the same way that Tito said, after you got done, it was like, wow, let me just, it was just so overwhelming. But it was also tremendous. What you felt when you walked through the curtain was tremendous.
All right, the first one, didn't have a lot of matches because I managed most of the time, but in Memphis, Tennessee, there was a guy named Pat Hutchison. He'd been wrestling for 3 years and never won a match. So Lawler put me into an angle with him on live TV now, Memphis TV, Saturday morning, and Dundee comes out and said, you know what, Lawler, he said, Jimmy Hart has never been in the ring in his life. And Lawler goes, you're right, he hadn't. He said, this guy's named Pat Hutchison. He's been wrestling for 2 or 3 years. He's never won a match yet. But I'm telling you, Monday night at the Coliseum, I know he can beat Jimmy Hart within 3 minutes. Lauder goes, we'll accept that challenge. I'm going, what? This is now really. So now I go to the Coliseum on Monday night. I wear size 8 shoe. Lauder said, you wear my boots. They were 10 and a half. I said, okay, great. They look like Flipper. He said, I said, I don't have any wrestling tights. He goes, wear my Tarzan strap, you know, one that goes on the side. Okay, it was about 4 sizes too big, so going to the ring, it kept falling off my shoulder, and I kept putting it back up, falling off my shoulder. So I got the Flipper shoes on, the Tarzan top that's way too big for me. Then he gives me this really long robe that he used to wear, which was dragging the ground. So what a clown that was going to the ring. So I go to the ring, Lauder helps me beat Pat Hutchison. So that was my first match in Memphis. My first match I had in WWE, which wasn't a lot, with WWF back then, it was a $50,000 battle royal in Madison Square Garden. It was about 15 or 20 of us in there. The last two left in the ring, because I hit underneath the ring till the very last second. And it was a junkyard dog. So the junkyard dog was looking over. They were going, Jimmy's under the ring, under the ring. And he goes up and he looks over the ring like this. And when he does, I come up from the other side with all my strength, push him over the top. And guess what? I won, but I still never got my $50,000. That's a true story, but those are my big matches. That's true, I never got it.
So Tito,
Your check's in the mail, right?
Right. So Tito, you were a babyface your entire career. Did you ever want to have a heel turn at any time?
Yes. In our business, the heels are the ones that control the match. The heels are the ones that had the fun. And I saw a lot of baby faces who I thought I had a better mind for the business than they did. And they made an unbelievable transaction and became great heels. So, and they were having fun. So I wanted to do it. When Rick Martel and I split up, Rick was coming back, and I went up to Vince and I asked him, I said, Vince, we're doing the split. Is there any way that I can be the heel? And Vince McMahon lied to me again. He says, I got a big plans for you in the future. Rick is going to be the heel. So that was the last chance I had a chance to be a heel. I don't know, but Vince just wasn't very honest.
So Tatanka, can you tell us how your entrance came about?
Well, I was at South Atlantic Pro Wrestling before. Am I good? I was at South Atlantic Pro Wrestling before I actually came to WWF. I actually signed, very fortunate, less than a year after I got started. But I was doing my character where I started. I came to the ring. I was a proud Native American. My name was War Eagle Chris Chavis. I wore a headdress. I had loincloth. I did the war dance. I did the tomahawk chop. So when I came to, is it off? I'm talking loud enough, so it's okay.
They can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear. So when I came to WWF, our agent at that time was the All Up, was Chief Jay Strongbow. So it was a perfect fit for the timing that I came in. I was already doing everything. So I was Chief's boy, man. Because Chief was, that was his whole character. He was successful being the Native American at WWF at that time. So I was already doing it. It wasn't a decision I was already doing, so I just kept following what I had started.
Was it just something that you wanted to do? No one, wrote anything for it? It was all just you?
No, one thing I know Tito had say there about Vince, but one thing I do, which I appreciate Vince, at the very, very beginning, since he knew I was truly a member of the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, one of the things he wanted to make sure that we did is we didn't do anything to embarrass our nation of people. Actually, he allowed me to go find my own name. I know that don't happen too much, but he asked me to go find a name, a Native American name for my character name. I actually gave him the name Tatanka. I told him what it meant. When I told him, he says, what does it mean? I said, it's a Lakota word. What does it mean? I said, it means buffalo. He looked at me, he says, great. He says, we're going to run with it. I went undefeated for 2 years. So he loved that buffalo running right over your opponent. But, it was me that created the name. So he was very wanting to make sure that there was nothing wrong with it.
Now, Tugboat, why do you think it is these days they don't use big guys anymore?
They're eating all those gummy bears that make you lose weight. Must be. I think that's it. Oprah sells them. Okay, so you know you can't do wrong. I don't know. There's some big guys around. You know what I'm saying? But wrestling is always morphing. Okay. Like in the 50s, you had a certain style. Even in the 40s, it was the black trunks. A heel was a heel. And then they went different ways according to the atmosphere. As far as politics go and everything. We're at war or this or whatever. And the styles changed. You know what I'm saying? So now, things are a major The only thing I don't care much for is everybody looks the same. It's like cookie cutter a lot of times. There's a lot of great talent. I would never, ever say anything ugly about any of the guys. You know, I was a fan. I became a wrestler. I'm still a fan. I don't mean I don't watch it night and day, but I watch and I try and keep up and stuff, and I meet different people when we do things like this. But it's morphed, I mean, it's more a cross between Mexican style and Japanese, strong style. Does that mean busting your back? I mean, people used to talk ugly about us when there was territories and when there was blood everywhere, and you were in barbed wire matches, and there was, explosive matches in Japan, from different companies over there. But I mean, it's morphed, and it will continue to change. And plus the crowd that's come out. The best thing that ever happened, I think, was the network, because you could sit down, a kid nowadays could sit down with his grandparents, his parents, whoever was grown up on wrestling and enjoyed wrestling. Okay, and they see the thing, the kids see what's going on now, and the style of wrestling is on now. When we morphed into all different types of characters. They did the cartoon show, and they had all these different things and stuff, and the angles that they ran, and, the storylines and stuff like that. Now it's sometimes it can be a little more chaotic in some of the matches, but that's just my personal opinion. Opinions are like people's heinies. Everybody's got one and some of them stink. But I mean, it's just my opinion, so take it for what it is. I mean, I think that's what the business is, and that's what the business will eventually always become. It changes with the environment.
All right, we have, I've just been informed we have 5 minutes left, so I want to get one question from the audience. Who has a question for one of these legends or all of them? Right up front here.
You guys feel like the way storytelling is now is like what it was back when you guys were wrestling? Like, I'm 45, so when I watched you guys on TV, like, storytelling was like, I was into it. Now it's like,
No one's emotionally tied to the storytelling. And not at all. Most of the stories they're doing make no sense at all. In our day, we did things that made sense. IRS, I got a headdress, a ceremonial headdress given to me by my nation, a free gift, but IRS says I got to pay gift tax. Can you believe that? Trying to tax the native. Gift tax. But guess what? It makes sense. The government, one tax, IRS, playing the deal, native, and then what does he do? He takes one of the most sacred things that natives consider sacred, and he finally gets to it and destroys it on TV. That night that it was done, I wasn't looking around ringside, but Chief Jay Strongbow was there, but everyone was standing. People were crying by ringside. People were emotionally tied. All of us, the fans, were emotionally tied to our storylines because they made sense. The stuff they're doing today, 90% of it's trash.
Hey, but you know what, though? I love the Bloodline story, though.
I love the Bloodline. I agree with you.
I'll be
100%.
honest with you, because it's really elevated Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, who were already great, but it's really put them in the spotlight. The Usos, one of my favorite tag teams, it's kind of elevated those guys with it. Paul Heyman, what a genius he is, the way I feel. He's been great for years and years. Roman Reigns has really came to the front now with his expression, his facial expressions. He doesn't really have to say too many words on anything, but his facial expressions are unbelievable, and just the way they've got that whole mixed in type thing with it. It's just, to me, I really have enjoyed that each week, so I'm hoping I get back in time tonight to watch SmackDown so I can see the continuation of it after that.
That's the best thing they got going on.
But I love that. It's great. It really is.
All right, guys, thank you again for taking some time. Put your hands together for the legends.